For 7 years, millions of dollars in suspicious cash flowed through Caesar's palace, linked to a man the Nevada Gaming Commission calls an illegal bookmaker. Internal warnings piled up. Anonymous tips were ignored. Regulators responded with a penalty of $7.8 million, the kind of fine that signals something deeper is broken on the Strip. But if even iconic casinos miss the red flags, how many other secrets are hiding in plain sight? Matthew Bowyer's name now sits at the center of one of Las Vegas's most expensive compliance scandals. Regulators and prosecutors call him an illegal bookmaker, a person who takes bets outside the law and moves money through casinos to mask where it came from. In Nevada, that is a federal crime, and it puts every casino that handles his cash under a microscope. Bowyer's operation did not run out of a back room. He moved millions through some of the most famous casino floors in the world. Over 100 days, from 2017 to 2024, he played with sums that would draw attention anywhere else. For casinos, this is not just about who wins or loses at the tables. The real question is, where did the money come from? Federal anti-money laundering laws require every casino to know their customer and verify the source of funds, especially when the numbers get this big, and especially when rumors swirl about illegal bookmaking. Casinos are supposed to flag suspicious activity, document every large transaction, and report anything that hints at criminal cash. The system is designed to stop people like Bowyer from turning illegal bets into clean winnings. But the rules only work if someone is watching. When a high roller walks in with stacks of cash, the casino's job is to ask hard questions, not just open the doors. That is where Bowyer's story becomes more than a one-man crime. It is a test of the Strip's willingness to choose compliance over profit. In June 2019, Caesars marked Bowyer as a high-risk customer. That label should have triggered extra scrutiny, more paperwork, more questions, more oversight. Regulators say it did not. Instead, Bowyer kept playing. Even after an anonymous tip identified him as a bookmaker, and even as other casinos cut ties, Caesars let him keep betting. The red flags piled up, but the action never stopped. In October 2025, Bowyer began serving a federal prison sentence for illegal bookmaking. His conviction confirmed what insiders had suspected for years. The money came from crime, and the system meant to catch it failed. The question now is whether Caesar's Palace and the Strip at large treats these failures as a wake-up call or just another cost of doing business. Do you think $7.8 million sends a real message, or is it just pocket change for a Vegas giant? Mistake, scandal, or standard operating procedure? What is your take? Red flags did not just appear once or twice. They stacked up, year after year, in Caesar's Palace compliance logs. Starting in 2017, Bowyer's play raised eyebrows almost immediately. He lost over $3 million that year alone, cycling huge sums through the cage and high-limit rooms. That kind of action demands scrutiny under federal law. Instead of slowing down, Bowyer's access only expanded. By June 2019, Caesars officially labeled Bowyer a high-risk customer. That designation is supposed to trigger extra paperwork, interviews, and proof, especially when a player's source of funds is unclear. Yet compliance records show Bowyer kept coming back. On at least 9 occasions, staff struggled to verify where his money came from. Each time, the required answers never materialized. The warnings grew louder. Somewhere between these episodes, an anonymous tip landed with the compliance team. The message was direct. Bowyer was not just a lucky gambler. He was running illegal bets. That kind of tip should have set off alarms, but the logs show Bowyer's account was only briefly suspended, then reinstated when he provided explanations that regulators later called insufficient. Even as other casinos began blacklisting Bowyer for similar concerns, Caesars allowed his play to continue. Internal emails and meeting notes, referenced in the regulatory complaint, detail a pattern: suspicion, discussion, then business as usual. Staff flagged the risks, but decisions kept falling in Bowyer's favor. The compliance team's warnings were noted, then filed away. Bowyer's visits were not rare. Over 100 documented gambling days stretched from 2017 to early 2024. Each session was another opportunity to intervene. Instead, millions flowed in and out, and the paper trail grew longer. It was not until January 2024, after federal agents arrested Bowyer and news of his indictment reached the Strip, that Caesars finally banned him across all properties. By then, the pattern was impossible to ignore. Multiple suspensions, repeated internal concerns, and an anonymous tip all failed to stop the action. If a high-risk label, industry bans, and direct warnings were not enough, what would it take for a casino to pull the plug? When compliance systems are tested this many times and still break, was it a matter of oversight or something deeper? On November 13, 2025, the Nevada Gaming Control Board filed a 5-count complaint against Caesars Entertainment. The document laid out years of anti-money laundering failures, naming Matthew Bowyer's unchecked high roller play as the core problem. Each count pointed to missed warnings, unverified funds, and a pattern regulators described as unacceptable for a company of this scale. The complaint did not just cover Caesars Palace. It extended to 7 other Strip properties, Reno operations, and tribal casinos in California under Caesars management. The next week, on November 20, 2025, the Nevada Gaming Commission met to decide what would happen next. Commissioners reviewed the stipulated settlement, a legal agreement negotiated between Caesars and the state. This is how most major casino penalties are handled in Nevada, not through a drawn-out trial, but by mutual agreement with the regulators setting the terms. The language of the settlement is precise. Caesars agreed to pay $7,800,000 without admitting or denying the allegations. The agreement required Caesars to overhaul its anti-money laundering program, double compliance spending, and expand its monitoring teams. The Commission's vote was not unanimous. 4 commissioners approved the deal, but Rosa Solis Rainey voted no, arguing the fine was too low and criticizing the 7-year delay in addressing Bowyer's activity. She wanted a penalty more in line with the $10.5 million fine levied against Resorts World earlier that year. The majority, though, sided with the settlement, citing the scale of Caesars' reforms and the fact that the fine was calculated as 3 times the casino's net winnings from Bowyer. Regulators made it clear the goal was to ensure Caesars could not profit from the lapse. In the official record, the phrase unsuitable methods stands out. That is regulator shorthand for operations that fall below the standards Nevada demands. It is a designation that can lead to fines, forced remediation, or, in rare cases, license trouble. For Caesars, the outcome was financial and procedural: a record fine, a public commitment to change, and a mandate to fix the systems that let Bowyer slip through. But with a process that ends in a settlement, not a courtroom battle, is justice served or just negotiated? Unsuitable methods of operation. That is the phrase regulators used in the official record, the kind of language reserved for cases where a casino's internal controls simply do not measure up. In Nevada, this is more than a slap on the wrist. It is a formal declaration that the House has failed to play by the rules that keep the Strip credible. The Nevada Gaming Control Board and the Nevada Gaming Commission recorded that finding in the stipulated settlement. For Caesars, the penalty was not arbitrary. The fine of $7.8 million was calculated as 3 times the casino's net winnings from Matthew Bowyer. Regulators wanted to make sure not a single dollar of profit remained from years of unchecked play. That multiplier is not just for show. It is designed to erase any financial incentive to overlook suspicious money, and to send a message that the cost of ignoring red flags will always outweigh the reward. The stipulated settlement did not stop at the money. Caesars agreed to overhaul its anti-money laundering program from the ground up. That meant doubling compliance spending, expanding the team responsible for monitoring high-risk play, and introducing new layers of training for every employee who touches cash or chips. The casino was required to update its policies for verifying the source of funds, to tighten suspicious activity reporting, and to notify regulators of any future changes in its controls. The mandated changes covered not just Caesars Palace, but all 8 Strip properties, Reno casinos, and the tribal resorts Caesars manages in California. Commissioners made it clear the fine was only part of the reckoning. The mandated upgrades touched every corner of the operation, from surveillance to the cage to the high-limit rooms. For some, these reforms were long overdue. Commissioner Rosa Solis Rainey, the lone dissenting vote, argued the penalty should have been even higher, more in line with the fine of $10.5 million handed to Resorts World earlier in the year. She criticized the 7-year delay in addressing Bowyer's activity, questioning whether the industry's largest names are truly held to account when compliance fails. So what does unsuitable methods of operation really mean on the Strip? Is it a warning shot or just another line in a stipulated settlement? When the dust settles, will a record fine and a list of mandated fixes actually change how business gets done in Las Vegas? Or is it simply the price of letting the money keep rolling in? Resorts World Las Vegas and MGM Resorts International both landed in regulatory crosshairs before Caesars ever faced its penalty. In March 2025, Resorts World agreed to pay $10.5 million. It was Nevada's second largest ever. State investigators found the casino allowed individuals tied to Matthew Bowyer to gamble millions without proper anti-money laundering checks. The complaint included 12 counts, covering failures to verify the source of funds, gaps in transaction monitoring, and a pattern of overlooking suspicious activity in high-limit rooms. Resorts World had only opened its doors in 2021, but within 4 years it faced a penalty that sent shockwaves up and down the Strip. 1 month later, MGM Resorts was hit with $8.5 million in fines. Regulators cited 10 separate counts of anti-money laundering violations, some involving Bowyer, others tied to Wayne Nix, another illegal bookmaker. MGM's own compliance logs showed ignored warnings dating back to 2015 and a customer alert in 2018 that failed to trigger any meaningful action. The settlement required MGM to admit wrongdoing and overhaul its policies for high-risk play, adding new layers of oversight to its casino floors and back offices. Altogether, these 3 fines, $10.5 million for Resorts World, $8.5 million for MGM, and $7.8 million for Caesars, add up to $26.8 million in penalties issued by Nevada regulators in 2025 alone. Each case points to the same pattern: high rollers moving suspicious sums, compliance teams flagging risks, and the action continuing anyway. Regulators describe Bowyer as a wrecking ball, leaving a trail of bruised reputations and battered compliance systems across the city's most famous properties. For Las Vegas, this was not a story about one casino's failure. It was an indictment of a system where 3 of the Strip's biggest names all missed the same warning signs. If fines this large can be handed down in rapid succession, what does that say about how the industry really handles high-risk, high-stakes risk? Caesars' leadership did not try to spin the scandal. Gary Carano, the company's chairman, called the whole episode embarrassing, a stain on a brand that is supposed to set the standard for compliance on the Strip. In public statements, Caesars executives admitted the company failed to catch Matthew Bowyer, failed to ask the right questions, and failed to protect the integrity of its own games. That kind of blunt apology is rare in the casino business, where silence and settlements usually take care of trouble before it hits the headlines. But the real question lingers: does a multi-million-dollar penalty actually change how a giant like Caesars operates? The company responded by doubling its anti-money laundering budget, pouring tens of millions into new compliance staff, training, and technology. Every property under the Caesars name, on the Strip, in Reno, and even tribal casinos in California, now faces stricter rules and closer oversight. On paper, the reforms are sweeping. In practice, the casino floor still runs on big money, and the high-limit rooms are busier than ever. For a company that reported $2.1 billion in Strip profits last year, the fine is less than half of 1% of earnings. Meanwhile, VIPs and high rollers, less than 1% of visitors, account for nearly a third of Caesars' gaming revenue. The economics are clear. Big spenders get the velvet rope, and the house does whatever it takes to keep them coming back. Rising minimum bets, new resort fees, and stricter entry requirements have made the Strip feel less inviting for regular tourists, while the red carpet rolls out for the biggest whales. So when executives promise that compliance will never take a back seat to revenue, it is hard not to ask, is a headline making fine enough to make Las Vegas rethink its priorities? Or does it just become another cost of doing business, a rounding error in the rush to chase the next VIP? When the embarrassment fades and the reforms settle in, will anything really change on the casino floor? Today, fines totaling $26.8 million call out a strip-wide pattern. Compliance gaps that regulators say should never exist in the heart of American gambling. As Vegas leans harder on VIP dollars, the line between oversight and profit grows thinner. The real wager isn't on the tables. It is whether accountability can keep up. Are the stakes for trust in the Strip higher than ever?